My name is Barbara Townsend. I'm 27 years old, and I've been sitting on this story for about a week now, trying to decide whether I was finally ready to say it out loud. I think I am. Buckle up, because this isn't about a breakup. It's about what happens when love slowly turns into a test you were never meant to pass. I was with my boyfriend for 3 years. 3 long years of second-guessing my words, replaying conversations in my head at night, and wondering how I could care so much and still always be wrong. On paper, he was perfect. Handsome, intelligent, charming in a quiet way. He came from a good family, had a stable job, and knew exactly how to make a great first impression. Everyone loved him, including me. At least at first. The problem wasn't that he was cruel. That would have been easier. The problem was that he expected me to just know things, what he wanted, what he needed, what he meant, without ever saying them. And when I didn't. That failure was somehow proof that I didn't care enough. It started small, innocently enough that I brushed it off. Year 1, we're at a restaurant. He orders a salad. I order a burger. When my plate arrives, he stares at it, not casually, intensely. I notice, but I say nothing. Finally, I ask if everything's okay. I'm fine, he says. Are you sure? He sighs, dramatically. If you don't know, I'm not going to tell you. I laugh, thinking he's joking. Spoiler, he wasn't. Later, I realized he wanted some of my fries. But I was supposed to offer without being asked. When I finally did, he shook his head. It's too late now. I remember thinking it was a quirk, something couples laugh about later. I didn't realize I'd just failed my first exam. By the end of year 1, these moments were everywhere. Small pauses, heavy silences, expressions that meant I was supposed to decode something. And every time I asked for clarity, the answer was the same. A real girlfriend would just know. Year 2 was worse. For his birthday, I bought him a watch he'd admired weeks earlier. He barely smiled. I just thought he said carefully that if you really loved me, you wouldn't need hints. Valentine's Day wrong again. I planned a surprise dinner at his favorite place. He wanted something more intimate. Our anniversary, I made the fatal mistake of asking what he wanted to do. If I have to tell you, he said, disappointed, it doesn't count. By year 3, I was exhausted. Every conversation felt like walking through a dark room filled with tripwires. I was always apologizing, always trying harder, always wondering how someone could feel so unloved while being so adored. Then came the weekend trip. Beach or mountains, I asked. Just give me something to work with. I shouldn't have to, he said coldly. 3 years together and you still don't understand me. And that's when something inside me finally went quiet. I looked at him and said the words I'd been afraid to say for years. You're right. He blinked, surprised, and for the first time, I didn't rush to explain or apologize. You're absolutely right, I continued. I should just know. And suddenly I did. By the time I said those words, you're right, something fundamental had already shifted inside me, even if I didn't fully understand it yet. But to explain how I got there, I need to rewind a little, because the truth is, I didn't wake up one day suddenly exhausted. That exhaustion was built layer by layer, disappointment by disappointment, until it became my normal. After that first year, the quirks stopped feeling cute. They started feeling like rules, unspoken ones I kept breaking without ever being told what they were. Year 2 was when everything became a test. Not openly, of course. Nothing was ever stated outright. It was always implied, suggested, left hanging in the air between us, like a smell I couldn't quite place, but couldn't escape either. His birthday came first. I spent weeks planning it, convincing myself that this time I'd get it right. I didn't just buy him something expensive, I bought him something personal. A watch he'd lingered over in a store window weeks earlier, the kind he'd commented on casually. Like he didn't expect anyone to remember. I remembered. I even wrapped it myself, sitting on my bed late at night, imagining his face when he opened it. He smiled when he saw it, just briefly. Then he tilted his head. You got this because I showed it to you. Yes, I said carefully. Because you liked it. That's not really the point, he replied. A real girlfriend would have picked something on her own. It's about the thought. The word thought stuck with me. I replayed it later, lying awake, wondering how much more thought I could possibly give than I already had. I told myself I was being sensitive, that he didn't mean it harshly, that relationships required adjustment. Valentine's Day was next. I planned a surprise dinner at his favorite Italian place. Candlelight, wine, dessert he loved. I thought I'd nailed it. He barely touched his food. You should have known, he said afterward as we walked back to the car, that I wanted something quieter, more intimate. That place was crowded. I wanted to surprise you, I said. And that's the problem, he replied. You surprise yourself, not me. By then, apologies were automatic. I apologized even when I didn't understand what I was apologizing for. I apologized because silence was worse. Silence meant I'd failed again. Our anniversary was the moment I still replay when I need proof I wasn't imagining things. I asked him what he wanted to do. I asked because I wanted us both to enjoy it, because I'd learned painfully that guessing wrong was worse than asking. His face changed instantly. "If I have to tell you," he said quietly, "it doesn't count." The disappointment in his voice was unmistakable, heavy, familiar. "You should just know by now." By the end of that second year, every interaction felt like defusing a bomb blindfolded. I learned to scan his expressions, measure his tone, replay his words. I was constantly alert, constantly correcting myself, constantly trying to be one step ahead of expectations I couldn't see. And the phrase, "a real girlfriend would just know," became his favorite weapon. He used it when I bought the wrong brand of coffee creamer because I didn't realize he'd changed his preference. He used it when I didn't notice he was upset before he announced it. He used it when I planned things he didn't want but never said he didn't want. Sometimes he'd go quiet for hours, sometimes days. When I asked what was wrong, he'd shake his head. If you don't know, he'd say, "What's the point of telling you?" I started doubting myself in ways that went far beyond him. I questioned my intuition, my emotional intelligence, my worth as a partner. I wondered how other women managed to just know these things. I wondered what was wrong with me. By year 3, I was tired in a way sleep didn't fix. I felt like I was constantly on trial, presenting evidence of my love to a judge who had already decided the verdict. Every kind gesture was weighed, every mistake remembered. Nothing was ever enough, not consistently, not safely. Still, I stayed. I told myself that relationships take work, that love isn't easy, that maybe if I tried harder, paid closer attention, anticipated better thought, faster, I'd finally pass whatever test he was giving me. I didn't realize yet that the test wasn't designed to be passed. And I definitely didn't realize how close I was to finally stopping altogether. The argument about the trip didn't start as an argument. It never did. That was the cruelest part. It always began like something ordinary, almost reasonable, before slowly tightening into something that left me feeling cornered and small. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, laptops open, a shared calendar between us, like evidence in a trial. So I said carefully, keeping my tone light for the weekend getaway, "Beach or mountains? Just give me a direction." He didn't look up, just shrugged. "I shouldn't have to," he said. I waited, hoping he'd elaborate. He didn't. "I just want to make sure we both enjoy it," I added. "That's all." That's when he finally turned to me, his expression already set in that familiar mix of disappointment and superiority. "This is exactly the problem," he said. "You don't pay attention. You don't care enough to just know." Something in my chest tightened. Not anger, not sadness, just exhaustion. "I do pay attention," I said quietly. "I just don't want to guess wrong." "If you really understood me," he replied, "there wouldn't be a wrong guess." And that was it. Not a dramatic snap. Not tears, not yelling, just a soft internal click, like a switch being flipped after being stuck in the same position for too long. 3 years of trying to read a book with blank pages. 3 years of being wrong no matter what I chose. I looked at him and said the words that surprised both of us. "You're right." He blinked. Usually this was the part where I'd scramble, where I'd backtrack, explain myself, apologize for being defensive. Not this time. "You're absolutely right," I continued calmly. "I should just know." Suspicion flickered across his face, quickly followed by something else. Satisfaction. Maybe even relief. Finally, he said, "Thank you for admitting that." I nodded. "And I finally do know something," I replied. That got his attention. I stood up and walked to my desk. He watched me confused as I pulled out an envelope. Plain, white, no label. I'd written it 2 nights earlier during one of his silent treatments. He'd been angry then too about the coffee creamer. I'd bought the wrong brand. I should have known he'd changed his preference. I handed him the envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "What you need," I said. "Freedom." He frowned and opened it. The letter wasn't long. 3 paragraphs. No accusations, no drama, just facts. I wrote that we weren't compatible, that I couldn't be the person he needed, the one who could anticipate unspoken desires and pass invisible tests, that I wished him well and hoped he'd find someone who could meet his expectations because I clearly couldn't. He read it once. Then again. Then he looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Shock. "You're breaking up with me," he said slowly in a letter. "I figured you'd want me to just know this was the right way to do it," I replied evenly. "No need to discuss. A real girlfriend would just know, right?" For a moment he just stared at me. Then his face crumpled. He started crying. "You can't be serious," he said. "Over something this small." "It's not small," I answered. "It's 3 years of never being good enough, no matter how hard I try. I'm done guessing." I grabbed my jacket. He was still sitting there holding the letter like it had betrayed him. "I'll stay at a friend's tonight," I said. "We'll talk logistics later." I didn't wait for his response. As I closed the door behind me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. It was just the beginning. I stayed at my friend's place that night, slept on her couch fully clothed, staring at the ceiling while my phone buzzed on the coffee table like it was alive. I didn't answer a single notification. Not the texts, not the missed calls. I needed silence more than I needed closure. The first 48 hours after the breakup were deceptively calm. He cycled through emotions quickly: confusion, anger, dismissal. One text said, "We need to talk." Another said, "You're being dramatic." A third accused me of throwing away 3 years over nothing. I read them all. I replied to none. Then, on the third day, his mother called. I almost didn't answer, but she'd always been kind to me, warm, the type who hugged too long and talked about the future like it was already decided. I'd been the stable girlfriend in her mind, the one who'd eventually marry her son and give her grandchildren. So when her name popped up on my screen, I sighed and picked up. "Sweetheart," she said immediately, voice thick with concern. "What's going on?" "My son is a mess." With respect, I said carefully, already bracing myself, "I think you should talk to him about that." "He says you broke up with him over coffee creamer," she replied. I almost laughed. Almost. "That's not accurate," I said. It was 3 years of being expected to read his mind and being punished when I couldn't. There was a pause, then a gentle chuckle. "Oh, honey," she said, "that's just how men are. We want our partners to pay attention." "There's a difference between paying attention and being psychic," I replied. "I tried for 3 years. I'm done." She shifted tactics immediately. "His father and I have been married for 30 years, she said. "Do you think I didn't have to train him?" "Training implies someone tells you what to do," I answered. "He never told me anything. He just got upset when I didn't magically know." Another pause, this one sharper. "Well," she said, "maybe if you'd tried harder." "Goodbye," I interrupted. "Please don't call again." I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking just slightly. I thought that would be the worst of it. It wasn't. Day 4 around noon, someone knocked on my apartment door. I'd moved back in the night before. It was my lease, after all. He'd chosen to stay with a friend. I opened the door to find his sister standing there, arms crossed, jaw tight. She had the energy of someone who had peaked years ago and was still furious about it. She didn't wait for an invitation. She pushed past me into the apartment. "We need to talk about what you're doing to my brother." "I'm not doing anything to him," I said, closing the door behind her. "I ended a relationship." With a letter, she snapped. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that is?" I raised an eyebrow. Should I have just known the right way to do it? She didn't find that funny. "You're ruining his life," she said. "He hasn't eaten. He hasn't slept. He's been crying for days." "That's unfortunate," I replied calmly, "but it's not my responsibility anymore." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "He loved you," she said. "He was going to propose." That stopped me. "I was never going to say yes," I replied. Her face went white. "What?" I realized about 6 months ago that I couldn't marry someone who made me feel like a constant disappointment, I said. The only reason I stayed was because I kept hoping things would change. They didn't. Her voice rose. "So you led him on for 6 months?" "No," I said. "I tried for 6 months. There's a difference." She stormed out after that, calling me heartless, cold, selfish. Heartless was the nicest word she used. I closed the door behind her and leaned against it, staring at the empty apartment. That's when I realized something unsettling. They weren't reacting to the breakup. They were reacting to losing control of the story. And they weren't done trying to rewrite it. Day 6 was when things stopped being emotional and started becoming strategic. I was at work when my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, my landlord's name popped up. That one I answered. "Hey," he said, voice calm but firm. "Got a bit of a situation." My stomach tightened. "Okay." "Your ex-boyfriend called me," he continued. "Claimed you illegally evicted him. Wanted me to let him back into the apartment while you're at work." For a second, I was too stunned to speak. "He what?" "Yeah," my landlord said. "But I pulled the lease. His name isn't on it. Never was. I told him to take it up with you or the police." I exhaled slowly. "Thank you." "You're covered," he added. "If the cops come by, I'll show them the same paperwork." They did come by. 2 officers showed up that evening, polite and professional. I showed them the lease. I showed them text messages proving he'd left voluntarily to stay with a friend. I pointed out that in 3 years, he'd never paid rent and had never been added to the lease. The older officer nodded. This is a civil matter. He can retrieve his belongings with your agreement, but he has no legal claim to the residence. The younger officer glanced down the hallway where my ex was standing with his arms crossed, performing his best wounded act. Even sympathy couldn't override documentation. He was given 2 options to collect his things, Saturday or Sunday. Daytime hours only. I would be present the entire time. He wanted to come on a weekday evening. I should have known that, apparently. I said no. Saturday I stayed home and packed. I was methodical about it. Clothes folded, shoes paired, books stacked, his absurdly extensive skincare collection carefully wrapped so nothing would leak. I labeled every box. Bedroom, bathroom, closet, desk. That's when I found the journal. It was wedged behind the nightstand, probably fallen months ago. I wouldn't normally read something so private. I know that. But as I lifted it, a page slipped open. An entry from about a year earlier. She didn't get me anything for our 2-year anniversary. Well, she got flowers and took me to dinner, but nothing real. I tested her. Didn't tell her what I wanted. Waited to see if she'd figure it out. She didn't. I sat down on the bed. Mom says I need to be more direct, but I think if she really loved me, she wouldn't need directions. My friend at work agrees. She says her girlfriend always knows what she wants. I think she's exaggerating, but it sounds nice. My hands were shaking now. I'm going to keep testing her. If she passes, I'll know she's the one. If she fails, well, that tells me everything I need to know. I closed the journal. There it was, in his own handwriting. 3 years of exams I was never meant to pass. Silence used as punishment. Confusion used as leverage. Love measured by guessing games. I didn't confront him about it. I didn't need to. I placed the journal carefully into one of his boxes and sealed it shut. By the time Sunday came, I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. Sunday morning arrived with a heaviness in my chest that coffee couldn't touch. I'd slept badly, waking every hour replaying conversations that hadn't happened yet. By 10 o'clock sharp, I was dressed, apartment clean boxes stacked neatly by the door, like evidence waiting to be reviewed. I told myself this was just logistics, nothing more. I was wrong. The knock came exactly on time. When I opened the door, I wasn't met with just him. Of course not. He stood there flanked by his mother, his sister, and a woman I didn't recognize, tall, polished, dressed like she was headed somewhere better than my living room. She leaned slightly toward him, her hand resting just a little too comfortably on his arm. My stomach dropped. "You can come in," I said, keeping my foot braced behind the door. "Everyone else waits in the hallway." His mother bristled immediately. "That's ridiculous. We're just here to help." "I'm sure you are," I replied calmly. "But this is my apartment. He can collect his things and leave." My ex rolled his eyes. "You're being petty." "I'm being practical." The woman in the hallway spoke up, then smiling like this was all mildly amusing. "We're not going to steal anything." "I don't know you," I said, "and you're not coming in." She laughed under her breath. Wow, she really is like this. He didn't correct her. That told me everything. He stepped inside alone. I gestured to the boxes. 15 minutes. Everything's labeled. He immediately started opening them one by one, inspecting their contents, like I'd sabotaged something. "Where's my blue sweater?" "Second box, top layer." "My hairdryer." "Third box, bottom left. It's in a bag." Every few seconds he glanced up at me, eyes searching for something, guilt maybe, regret. I gave him nothing. Then he froze. He'd found the journal. His face drained of color as he stared at it, then at me. "Did you read this?" he asked, voice sharp. "It fell open," I said. "I saw enough." "That's private." "You left it in my bedroom for a year," I replied evenly. His sister poked her head through the doorway. "Everything okay?" He shoved the journal into his bag. "Fine, let's just go." But he wasn't done. "I want the TV," he said suddenly. I blinked. "Excuse me?" "The one in the living room. I helped pay for it." "You bought pizza the night I paid for it with my credit card," I said. "That's not how ownership works." "We were a couple," he snapped. "Everything was shared." "Show me a receipt with your name on it," I replied. Silence. His mother tried next. Morally, he contributed to this household. "He lived here rent-free for 2.5 years," I said. "I'd say he got plenty." The woman in the hallway laughed. Actually laughed. "Damn," she said. "He told me you were a pushover." My ex shot her a look. "Shut up." And there it was, the mask slipping. I looked at him, then at her. "Is this why you were so eager to leave, already lining up the next chapter?" "That's not," he started. She shrugged. "We've been talking for a few months. He said you were basically over anyway." His sister's mouth fell open. "Wait, you and her." I held up a hand. "I don't care. Take your things and go." As they loaded boxes into her car, yes, her car, My neighbor stepped out into the hallway, mail in hand. He took in the scene, the tears, the tension, the unfamiliar woman. "Everything all right?" he asked me. "Just fine," I said. "Breakup stuff." He nodded thoughtfully. "Saw this coming. Good for you." My ex's mother snapped, "Excuse me, who are you?" He smiled gently. The neighbor who's listened to her scream at him through the walls for 3 years about things that didn't make sense. She's patient. Glad she finally figured it out. I could have hugged him. They left shortly after that, the hallway quiet once more. I locked the door behind them and leaned against it, heart pounding. I thought it was finally over. I was wrong. For about 2 weeks after that Sunday, my life was quiet. Not the fragile, anxious quiet I'd grown used to, where silence meant I'd done something wrong. This was different. This was peaceful. I cooked what I wanted, watched what I wanted, used whatever coffee creamer I felt like buying without bracing myself for consequences. I didn't flinch when my phone buzzed. I didn't replay conversations in my head before falling asleep. I started to feel like myself again. That's when she tried to rewrite the ending. The first message came from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, this is his friend. We need to talk about what you did to him." I didn't respond. I blocked the number. The second message came the next day from another unknown number. "He's telling people you were emotionally abusive. You should know." That one I didn't block. I screenshotted it. Then my mother called. "Honey," she said carefully, "did something happen between you and your boyfriend?" "Ex-boyfriend," I corrected. "And yes, we broke up about 3 weeks ago." There was a pause. Then his mother called me. My hands started shaking. "She what?" "She said you'd been cruel," my mom continued. "That you threw him out with nothing. That you humiliated him in front of his family." I closed my eyes and took a breath. None of that is true. I told her everything. The lease, the boxes, the police visit, the woman who showed up with him, the journal. I told her I had documentation texts, photos, landlord statements, even the police report from when he tried to claim I'd illegally evicted him. My mom was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I raised you better than that. I believe you." That should have been enough. But life wasn't done tying loose ends. A few days later, his sister reached out to me. Not angrily, not accusingly, just tired. She said the journal had been bothering her. She asked what I'd read. I told her about the testing, the deliberate silence, the way he decided whether I loved him based on whether I guessed correctly. She sighed. "He does that with everyone," she admitted. "He's tested me. Our parents, friends. Most people snap at him eventually. You lasted longer than anyone." I didn't know whether to feel proud or sad. Then she told me the rest. The woman who'd shown up on pickup day wasn't just a friend. She worked with him. Same department, same team. And their company had a strict policy about workplace relationships disclosure required. Neither of them had disclosed. That wasn't all. They'd also been flagged for falsifying expense reports, personal dinners labeled as client meetings, receipts altered, company cards misused. When HR started investigating the financial discrepancies, the relationship came out too. Both of them were placed on administrative leave. I didn't celebrate, I didn't gloat, but I won't lie, there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing the deception hadn't been limited to me. The final twist. When things started to unravel, he tried to blame her, claimed she'd orchestrated the fraud, and he was just along for the ride. She didn't take that well. She showed HR their text messages where he suggested which receipts to submit, which expenses to hide. From what I heard, both of them are likely getting fired. Neither can use the other as a reference. Their relationship, built on secrecy and convenience, is already collapsing under the pressure. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in my apartment watching TV. I paid for eating food. I like living without a scorecard I never agreed to keep. Last week, I ran into my neighbor, the one who'd spoken up during the move-out. He invited me to sit on his porch for a beer. "You look better," he said. "I feel better." He smiled. "My late wife used to say something. A good partner tells you what they need. A bad partner punishes you for not guessing." I raised my bottle to that. Do I miss him sometimes? Yes. Or at least the version of him I thought existed in the beginning. The one who laughed easily, who seemed grateful for effort instead of measuring it. But that person wasn't real. It was just the version he showed me before the tests began. I'm not dating anyone right now. Probably won't for a while. I started therapy, and apparently, if you really loved me, you'd just know is textbook emotional manipulation. Who knew? Apparently everyone but me. He's tried to contact me twice since everything blew up. Once through his sister, who refused to pass along the message. Once through a burner account on social media. Both messages were variations of the same thing. "This is all your fault. I didn't respond. Here's what I've learned. You can't win a game where the rules are hidden and change every time you play. The only way to win is to stop playing. I finally knew exactly what he needed. He needed someone to stop enabling his tests, his tantrums, and his beliefs.